greenhouse gases. UNFCCC, COP27, vulnerability, resilience, adaptive capacity, mitigation, adaptation. Amashani, shani, 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 amashani, shani, shani. Thank you. In becoming the climate change guy, these are some of the terms that you will come across constantly. At times, they will seem as if they're a headache. At times, they will seem so confusing and very hard and might discourage you to consider a journey down the path of becoming a climate change guy. But I'm here to tell you that do not be deceived. These are terms that can be learned, and once you learn them, you would discover that becoming the climate change guy is not as complicated as it sounds. My name is Ceswa Mpandamabula. I currently work with an organization called ActionAid Zambia as a climate and humanitarian officer. My responsibility there is to manage a climate change and climate justice portfolio, and I work a lot with young people. But my time here this morning is not to talk about where I work. I'm here to talk about myself and my journey to becoming this climate change guy. So, what makes me so important? Why am I standing here? Why, of all people in Zambia, did they pick this tall, skinny-looking Bemba guy to talk about becoming the climate change guy? Well, there are many reasons, but the first one is this. Every 30th day of the month, I receive a paycheck. I'm paid for working with young people to help them understand the extent of the climate crisis, but at the end of the day, I work with them to co-design solutions that work for them. Another reason I'm standing here to talk about becoming the climate change guy is, guys, I like soft life. I like to chop. I love amazing coffee. I love eating akawali na T-bone, kalaka T-bone akaku soskila. Ifisashi. I love an amazing life. And you and me know that this amazing life, unfortunately, is being threatened by the climate crisis. Therefore, I can't sit still. At the end of the day, I'm a father and I'm a husband. And my family's welfare is currently being threatened by the climate crisis. And if Liam Neeson has ever taught us something, it's this. Okay? Never touch his family, or else I will use a special set of skills that make me dangerous to things like climate change. So I've said, you touch my family, climate change, I'm coming after you. And that's why I'm standing here. That's why I became the climate change guy. So the question is, why become the climate change guy? I think these are reasons. I could basically skip this slide and move on, but I'll re-echo and emphasize the reason. Climate change has devastated our economies. It's devastated our homes. It has devastated our agricultural systems on which we solely and heavily depend on. Zambia is an agriculture-heavy country, and climate change is destroying our food systems and making them more insecure. Climate change has destroyed our homes. It's flooded our neighborhoods. Infrastructure has gone. And to make it worse, lives have gone. We've lost lives because of the climate crisis. Another reason is women of all ages and young people who I have a heart and a passion for are gravely impacted by climate change. Their livelihoods have been destroyed and they have been left in states of desperation. Another reason why you should become the climate change guy is because of all these impacts climate change has on our economies, on our food systems, on our homes, on our lives. The people that are designing the solutions, the architects of the climate response, are designing solutions that don't work for you and me in this room today. They're designing solutions that work for them, located millions and millions of kilometers away from our homes and our villages. Therefore, we must take charge of our own narrative and begin to design solutions that work for us. Therefore, let us become the climate change guy. What are the types of climate change guys that exist out there? Well, there's a climate and environmental policy guy. This is a guy that ensures that our country's responses to the climate crisis are in line with the actual needs of our communities. That the policies that we design, that the strategies that we design are strategies that work for us. You can become that climate change guy that ensures that the policies in our country represent them. You can become the climate change guy who is an environmental lawyer, who stands for the voiceless in courts of law and says, hey, Your Honor, this mine, through its many years of pollution, has degraded this environment, and through their emissions has caused the climate crisis, therefore they must pay. You can become the environmental guy. You can become the climate change educator guy. If you understand complex systems, complex concepts, and you're able to break them down into simpler things for people to understand, you are the climate change educator guy. Let people know about this problem and what it has caused and what's causing it. Be that educator. You can be that climate change educator guy. You can become the renewable energy guy because, look, climate change requires a whole green transition to renewable energies. You can be that guy that can install solar panels and become the solar guy if you want. Although that name is taken, so do not take it. There's a company and they might sue you. But become the solar guy. Become the guy that makes sure that every home that does not have access to direct energy from the electricity board is connected through renewable energies. You can become the weather guy who communicates the weather like the amazing Peggy Tole does on the meteorological department page. Or you can become the weather guy that NEPA trains through their climatology and meteorology. That word. You can become that guy who's trained to collect data about the weather, analyze the data, and say, look, in 3 days it will rain, in 1 month it will rain this much or this much. Farmers, do not plant. Farmers, plant. Protect your homes. Be that guy that studies the weather. Be the weather guy. You can become the climate change finance or the climate finance guy. For climate change to be sorted and resolved, we need a lot of money. It's a heavy burden. We need millions and millions of dollars. Be that guy that finds the millions of dollars by talking to either philanthropists, talk to the big banks and tell them how they have a responsibility to help their communities and therefore they should give the money. Be that guy who fights for the voiceless and finds the money for climate change. There are many other guys, but here's the guy that you shouldn't be. Don't be the climate change conference workshop attending guy. From Monday to Friday, it's workshop A to workshop B to workshop C. Workshop after workshop. Let's not be that guy who finds comfort in just sitting in workshops and does not take any action. Do not be the climate change workshop attending guy. Do not be the social media climate guy who hashtag chilling at Conservation Careers Fair, hashtag I love the environment guy. Don't be that guy. That guy is just that guy. Don't be the 1130 syndrome guy who says, Vama climate, why would you be a conservationist? There's no money there. The government employs 11,000 teachers and 30,000 medical doctors. That is the place to go. Don't be that guy. There are noble tasks out here to carry out as a conservationist, as a climate change guy, even though, yes, the government might not employ you in 30,000s of numbers, but you can be that guy. Don't be that guy who discourages people from being the climate change guy. So, in becoming the climate change guy, here are a few steps that I personally took in my journey that I'm going to share with you. Disclaimer, do not take these steps as face value, as the only method to becoming the climate change guy. At the end of the day, there are different ways that you can become the climate change guy, but nonetheless, I will share the steps that worked for me, hoping that they might inspire a thing or two in our minds and help us navigate onto a direction to becoming the climate change guy that works for us. Each one has their own path to take, a path that they can trade, and therefore, it is not face value advice for us to take. It is not the law, but it's something worth considering. The first step I took in becoming the climate change guy is I had the hunger for current information. I was staying abreast of the latest information as I could, and this dates back to the year 2010, when UNICEF put out an ad in so many newspapers asking children all over Zambia to apply to become one of the first climate change ambassadors. Do we have any climate ambassadors in here? I know there are many of us. There we go. Great. So, because of that, they put out this call, and in that very year, I joined one of the most elite committees in my high school, which was known as the library committee. You know, I think it was the best. But the reason I joined it, one of the reasons was this. The library every day had a fresh newspaper from yesterday that was put on its shelves. And for me, the newspaper was an outlet to the outside world. In the four walls of my boarding school, I was able to know what was happening out there, and therefore, I was thirsty and hungry for that information, and I stayed abreast of that information. And that is how I discovered this opportunity that led me to apply for this, and thus began my journey as a climate change guy. I was picked and went through this vigorous training on how I could help tackle the climate crisis. And there and then, my interests were sparked in climate change. What did this lead to? What did my newfound experience in the climate crisis, in the causes, the impacts, and the possible solutions do to me personally? Well, look, first of all, a key takeaway. In becoming the climate change guy, what are we saying? Be hungry for information. Stay up to date with the opportunities that are there. Opportunities that will help you understand or help you become that climate change guy that you ought to be. Right now, technology has helped us with so many avenues to get information. Let us leverage on that technology. So, leading to step 2, my newfound love for climate change led to something. It led to another hunger, to pursue knowledge, more and more knowledge on what climate change is, on what natural resource management is, on what the ecology is as a science. And this led me to pursue an education in that direction. And by pursuing that education, I was adding credibility to my hunger in becoming the climate change guy. What does this look, or what did this look like? So, through high school, like every high school going student in Zambia, I had a vision of becoming a medical doctor, a practitioner, amongst the many others who wanted to become, what else are we told? Engineer, lawyer, and so on. So it was natural that that was the trajectory I was heading down. I would study the medical books and understand the brain in and out, but after my exposure to a new opportunity on what the climate change crisis is and the risk that it posed on our economy, my interests were moved. And therefore, I went from becoming a desire to become a gynecologist, and I became an ecologist. Now, this is a bit tricky because my family is, African families, we're not too proud, if your son is not, hey, my son, you're not a doctor, hey, blah, blah, blah. So there's a sector in my family that still thinks I'm a gynecologist. Some relatives, they haven't told them the full story. Now, my fear is this. Look, I will be at a family event, and a cousin who's very pregnant will, all of a sudden start delivering, and everybody will be looking at me. Doctor, Sebenzani, and I'll be standing there saying the only thing I can deliver is a speech like this and not babies. So to be a crisis, to be a problem. But anyway, that was my change. My interest was sparked, and I had to make a decision, and it was a hard decision, but I said, you know what? I am becoming the climate change guy, and I went through with it. I pursued a bachelor's degree in ecology and natural resource management through a scholarship I attained that I found through what? The newspaper. Back to my point. Let's be hungry for information. Let us seek these opportunities. They're everywhere. Let us read and let us search for them. Found that opportunity, and there I was for 5 years being baked into becoming the next best climate change guy. I put in all my energies into my studies, and I said I would be the best climate change guy Zambia has ever seen. And you know what that led to? Before we get there, a key takeaway. To become the climate change guy, hard decisions will have to be made. Hard, uncomfortable decisions will have to be made. Decisions that may have people look down on you and say, what are you thinking? Decisions that might look very odd to the other or the normal human eye, but stick to those decisions. And at the end of the day, build your capacity through learning. To learning, there's no end. We need to learn, and do what? More learning. But in becoming the climate change guy, I had a reality check, and we all need to have a reality check. We need to manage our expectations because the streets are crazy. The streets are unpredictable. What did this mean for the climate change guy? Here I am, studied very hard for 5 years, graduated with a bachelor's degree, best in the class, okay? I came with a certain pride to say, the whole of Zambia should be waiting for me as a climate change guy. After all, Tinavi pasa. Came back here, started applying for jobs. I was knocking on the Department of National Parks' door. I was knocking on WWF's door. I was knocking on every door that worked in the conservation sector, but there were no opportunities, and I was getting rejection after rejection. Reality check. Okay, do not feel entitled. Just because you're good at something or just because you have an interest in something, your entitlement will definitely be destroyed. So these are just all the rejections that I ever got. So that sense of entitlement. But you know what that taught me, or what that should teach you as on your journey to becoming the climate change guy? For the future graduates in this room or people graduating slowly, as you leave your institutions out there, don't go thinking that there will be jobs waiting for you on silver platters. Despite us being here at this Conservation Careers Fair, we are hoping that we'll find careers. But the truth of the matter is that careers are hard to come by. Job opportunities are hard to come by, especially for you and me, the conservationist and the climate change guy. But the key takeaway is this. You need to move. As we move. If it gets hard, keep moving. If a job opportunity knocks you down, keep moving. If they tell you that we're not hiring now, or you're just keep moving. That is the key takeaway in becoming the climate change guy. You have to keep moving. Listen to this step. In your moving, what do you have to do? Build on your networks. You need to innovate, and you need to embrace radical uncertainty. What does this mean in your journey of becoming the climate change guy? The very first step you've taken by coming to this careers fair is an amazing step in networking. You get to know professionals. You get to have your name mentioned in people's mouths even when you're not in the room, okay? So you need to network, know people, and get known. It is one of the most important steps in becoming the climate change guy. And in absence of employment, okay, I took a journey of saying, listen, we move. So I will start side hustling. There is no shame in side hustling as a climate change guy until that right opportunity comes. No shame at all. If you have to move, those phones, or you have to move those books, or you have to move, in my case, was paper, you sell that paper. You have to keep moving until the right opportunity comes by. As you are moving, keep triggering your mind. Keep provoking your mind to think outside the box on how you can make your area or your area of speciality or expertise much better than it is. Invent, innovate new solutions, innovate new ideas. Throw them around as much as you can, because that is one of the most credible steps you can take in becoming the climate change guy. What did that networking lead to? I met an old colleague that I had volunteered with and who said, hey, listen, drop your CV and come and intern at our organization. And boom, that was my first internship opportunity. I interned with them, but this was an opportunity to learn. I grew myself. I grew my knowledge base, but I kept on networking. You need to keep on networking. When you find yourself in a position of influence and an opportunity to intern or to volunteer, give it your best. Do not look at it as a pastime activity. Look at it as a catapult or as a jumping platform to some other great thing. And it was through those opportunities that my interest for proposal writing developed. My interest to framing the problem and finding solutions developed. And working in this organization, interning, we submitted proposals, tested ideas, and lo and behold, one of the proposals got won, and that was my first employment opportunity, to become the climate change guy in this current situation the country is in. You need to be a good idea thinker, a proposal writer. You need to win proposals. That's how jobs come by around these days. So got that job, and my career started off. At the end of the day, as my career took off, another important point to note, I built relationships with like-minded people, people that had the same vision, people that we could bounce ideas off of each other and say, look, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? And before you know it, we were achieving a lot more than we ever expected in our young and very, infant stage or level of professionalism as climate change guys. Takeaway, to become the climate change guy, you must build the right relationships. Network, innovate, think out of the box, but build those right relationships. Finally, step 5. In becoming the climate change guy, you need to help others become the climate change guy. Give back and build others through solidarity. If there's anything that I ever preach from the pulpits of such events, it's solidarity. We need to build solidarity. What does that mean? Of solidarity and responsibility. Once you get into a position of influence as a climate change guy, use your skills, leverage your expertise to build other climate change guys behind you. Remember, the only people that we are competing with, and it's not people, the only thing we're competing with is environmental degradation and the climate crisis, not each other. So therefore, let us help each other, let us build each other, let us use our skills to nurture others and raise another flock of climate change guys behind us once we get into those positions of influence. To become the climate change guy, it's simple. You need to care for your neighbor. You need to do what the 7th National Development Plan stated. In order for Zambia to prosper, we need to go back to a time where we cared for our neighbor. Can you imagine that is a measure of development? For us to develop, we need to care for one another. Build solidarity. Remember, it's not us against each other, it's us against the climate crisis. Build solidarity, help each other. I've experienced opportunities just because somebody gave me an unsolicited recommendation. For example, my very standing here is because I received a call from Natasha from Wildlife Crime Prevention who said, somebody recommended you as a speaker for this. I don't know who that somebody is. I never asked that somebody. But if we maintain that responsibility where we mention the names of our neighbor in spaces of opportunity, we'll become the best climate change people that we can ever be. Let us look out for one another. So as I wrap up, I want us to carry out this deep introspection. You might be saying, I'm sitting here and my interests are elsewhere. So if you have a piece of paper, I just want you to divide your piece of paper into 2 parts. Or if you have your phone, type it. Or if you have a sharp memory, you can remember it. Just name 3 things that you're good at. 3 things that you know I am good at. Whatever it is, it's not related to conservation, it's not related to climate change, just generally whatever it is in life. Once you've listed those 3 things, I want you to list 3 impacts or 3 problems that environmental degradation or climate change has brought in a community that you live in or a neighboring community. 3 problems. It might be from the energy crisis because of poor energy supply, because that was brought about by erratic water supply, businesses were closed. That's a problem. Any problem, 3 problems that you can link to the climate crisis. Then at the end of the day, I just want you to ask yourself this one simple question. How can I use the skill that I'm good at to make a contribution to this problem? And I can assure you, if you think deeply, you will find that linkage. All I'm saying is this, there's an intersectionality, there is a linkage with everything that we do in life, with our skills, with our talents, in order for us to make a contribution either to the conservation sector, to the environmental protection sector, to the climate sector. It doesn't matter. If you say I'm good at sewing, I can make bonnets. No, women wear those very interesting devices on their heads. I don't know who invented those. I think they need to be burnt. But that's not the point. Ask yourself, how can my bonnet, my tailoring skills in making bonnets be used in the climate fight or in the environmental degradation fight? You start the talks about circularity and sustainability, you discover that there's an opportunity. So all of us, in short, are climate change guys. And I want us to remember that. Whatever those skills are on that paper, remember those skills and put them to work. Thank you for listening.